What's going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's talk about PalWorld and Pokemon, the Clash of the Titans, or the Clone Wars, I should say. This game is getting a ton of heat right now, and I completely understand it as a Pokemon card collector and hobby enthusiast. I understand why a lot of people are upset, why a lot of people are mad at this game. And the only reason I bring it up, because I really wasn't going to cover this game. There are other topics that I really want to talk about and cover, both within the TCG, and I've got some mail in that I was going to go over, but I think this is a little bit pressing, especially being like one of the #1 sold games on Steam right now. I think that's pretty amazing. I've never been a big PC gamer, but I've had people that I used to rent out to that lived with me that were big into gaming. So I'm very familiar with Steam and how these games pop up and a lot of people download them, but this game kind of takes the cake for all of these games combined. I mean, you've got Pokemon, which is the largest franchise, and then that is being compared to this game that just came out. And there are a lot of similarities, but let's go ahead and get into it. When I was at the bar last night, I run and own and operate a bar in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this couple came in. And I really don't know how this happened, but we got on the topic of PalWorld, and I was talking about my YouTube and how I talk about Pokemon, and they were like, yeah, it's so crazy. Like, most of the characters look just like Pokemon, and they were talking about the yellow Pal with the black kind of Thunderbolt on it, which really looks just like Electabuzz. Now, they are still different. There are a lot of similarities, and I think it's fair to say that you can only go so far with certain designs. I think a lot of people could even flame me on that and say, Orion, they had plenty of options and they chose to basically rip off Pokemon's IP. And I completely relate with that, and I understand it. I understand that it probably upsets a lot of people. I understand that it probably really pisses off people that are Game Freak enthusiasts and love all the Pokemon games and play into the Pokemon games and have a lot of respect for the Pokemon games. But I've got a couple chicken scratch bullet points that I'm going to go over here that I think are kind of interesting, and maybe even could be good for Pokemon as a whole. People feel free to disagree with this. I don't know how this video is going to do, but I still think it's an interesting topic that we should talk about. So first off, PalWorld, I believe, is good competition. When I went to business school, one thing I learned is why businesses end up on the same street, neck and neck, across from each other, running the exact same business and strategy. And competition is actually good, can actually be good overall. And I think in Pokemon's case, seeing a game that's very similar to Pokemon and people are comparing it to Pokemon, it's a lot of maybe bad press for Pokemon, but at the same time, you know, they say that, you know, bad press is good press. Like any kind of news relating back to the drama of this and, you know, how it's compared to Pokemon and, oh, woe is me with Pokemon and poor Pokemon, the largest franchise, just, you know, milking millions and millions of dollars from its loyal users and collectors of the TCG like myself. You know, a part of me, I love Pokemon, but I don't really feel bad for Pokemon necessarily, right? I see, you know, a new game coming out that looks like a lot of fun. The people that I talked to in the bar last night, I asked them how long they've been playing it. The guy was like, oh, I've been playing it for around 12 hours. And he's like, I love it. Like, I'm just getting into it, but I love it. You know, I wish I knew where to find the right pals. But I've been looking over gameplay of this over and over, and I listened to, you know, a couple lawyers' opinions on this, and it seems to me that the game is a lot of fun and has a lot more going for it than Pokemon does. It's, you know, it's got the crafting and the bases and the guns, and the characters, you know, look similar but are different as well. You know, you can only do so much when a franchise like Pokemon has pretty much dominated the animated character model structure, molds, whatever you want to call it, in the animation video game world. I mean, Pokemon, their IP, like, I feel like they own the show. They run the show. They have all of these designs, and they've kind of monopolized the designs. Now, some people would say, Ryan, that's very naive. They haven't monopolized the designs. Pokemon has very unique designs that PalWorld is essentially ripping off. But I think that might be the case with a couple of the pals, and maybe not all of them, and I think people are being a little bit harsh on the game. Watching the gameplay, it actually looks like a lot of fun. I have never been tempted to go on Steam and add a game other than Rainbow Six Siege so that I could play with one of my old roommates, but that's about as close as I ever got to playing Siege, games on Steam on my PC, right? But this is a game that, for the first time, I'm like, if my PC can actually run this, I don't know if it's, modern enough to run this, but if my PC can run this, this is a game that I would actually like to play and play through and try out. I actually think it looks like a lot of fun. It's blended the elements that I like of, you've got the idea of kind of FPS shooter added with the Pokemon vast, real world exploration. I don't know. I really like what's going for the game. And despite a lot of criticisms and drama for the game, I do think that there are some points to be made about the two. I don't think that necessarily the game is better than the Pokemon games. I think that they have their similarities and differences. I think there are good things about both of them, but I think PalWorld is kind of the adult Pokemon game that you would want to play, whereas Pokemon for me is a little bit underwhelming. I got Scarlet and Violet, I played it through, I've seen the gameplay for Sword and Shield, I've seen the gameplay for Arceus, and I honestly don't understand the hype for the Pokemon games. I really don't understand the hype for it. I tried to play into it, it just wasn't for me, but I see this PalWorld, and I'm not gonna lie, this is 100% transparency. I wanted to jump in on the game, so where the game catches a lot of bad press, I kind of like the game, and I think it's only helping. And I think the bad press and the drama surrounding this game is only helping more people be open-minded and trying it out. So I think PalWorld is essentially good competition for Pokemon. And while a lot of people probably don't believe that Pokemon is going to change its ways or do anything differently, I beg to differ. I think that Pokemon would see these sales and see that money and see that their market share is being stolen out from under them and say, we've got to maybe do something different. We've got to revamp these games. I don't think it's okay, the quality of Scarlet and Violet, when it just came out. Now, I'm not going to lie here, I personally did not see a whole lot of glitches when I was playing the game. But I did see all of the coverage of the game before I purchased it, and it seemed like it was very glitchy and had a lot of flaws. And it had some weird things that I noticed when I was playing it, but I figure, you know what, this is a big, expansive game, but no, that's giving way too much credit to a franchise that should have this stuff down pat. It almost seems to me like Game Freak was better off in the Game Boy days, in the DS days, than it is now with Switch. But, I definitely have high standards for a $60 video game, and PalWorld is $40. So when you've got, the cost comparison of those two, it's important to note that, yeah, people are going to try out this game. It's a lot cheaper. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't just free. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't just free to download and you would pay for skins and, different camos for guns. Like, I'm kind of surprised they didn't do that, and maybe they did. I don't know enough about PalWorld right now. I think I should probably download and buy the game and give it a couple plays before coming back to this. But for right now, other than the designs of the Pokemon and the catching sphere, and we're going to get into that, there are some sketchy similarities, and from a lawyer perspective, I think it's not going to look good for PalWorld. And that's unfortunate, because I think the game has a lot of potential and a lot of future ahead of it if it could continue. But I'm worried that they are not going to be able to continue because they will get shut down and sued to oblivion. But, who knows? If not, we'll be learning a lot just off of that about the game world in general and how these things work. The terminology asset flipping is used a lot. And from what I understand, that's basically like just them stealing a part of their IP and using it without any credit being due, right? There are some Pokemon like this PAL that looks like Electabuzz. It's hard for me to believe that they would not get into legal trouble over something like that. The average consumer, the average person or judge is going to look at a screen, if they don't have their glasses on and they're looking like I am because I'm partly blind, if they're looking at it, they're going to see that Electabuzz and this yellow PAL that is pretty much on the forefront of most of PalWorld's thumbnails. I'm guessing he's one of the better PALs, which again, I'm interested in this. I actually kind of want to play it. It looks like it's a lot of fun. But I'm guessing that if someone looks at that higher up, they're going to say, yeah, this looks very similar. I think we've got something here. At the same time, there are memes and jokes that Pokemon has nothing on PalWorld. So this will be very interesting to watch this going forward. I definitely want to know more so what you guys think than just what I think about the whole situation, and even my opinions about the game. You know, I don't want to catch, blowback essentially from just saying the game seems okay to me. You know, I don't want, people to necessarily flame me just because I think they've got something good going on with the game. I do think they've got something good going on in the game, and I think that competition is honestly healthy for Pokemon. It might help them, might light a fire under their butts, so to speak. Another point I'm going to make. Ooh, I don't feel great. Free marketing for Pokemon. I honestly, and I probably just already said this, but I do feel like it is free marketing for Pokemon. I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this game looks just like Pokemon. Well, I don't want this game. This is the cheap knockoff version. This is the clone version. So then I'm not going to buy this. I'm just going to buy the real deal and buy Pokemon. A lot of people are going to turn their nose and say that's not the real deal. So that should, in essence, be good for sales for Pokemon games. Another thing, and these are maybe hot takes off the top of my head. The game is actually good. A lot of people have said this. I've watched a lot of bigger video game streamers, and I trust the bigger video game streamers because they don't have a whole lot of bias, right? People that are playing Pokemon, people that are Pokemon fans, people in the fan base that are loyal to the game and the IP, and respect it and care about it, they are going to be biased. But an opinion from gamers that want to try the all kinds of games from the best to the worst and rate them and give their 2 cents is, I'm seeing that a lot of people like this PalWorld, and even the gamer that came into my bar last night and his wife or girlfriend, they both had been playing the game and they both liked it, but they both said that it's, it definitely feels like Pokemon, cloned Pokemon 2.0. So even people that are gamers understand that there are similarities. That doesn't necessarily mean that they think the game is bad. They still said that they enjoyed the game. And so that's just a random person walking into my bar shortly after this game released that's already downloaded it and playing it. So I found that to be very interesting that my world somehow clashed paths with a gamer, and they weren't a streamer because I was going to ask if they had any streaming content of it, what they thought of it. They did mention that it had some bugs, that it would typically, the servers would shut down for a couple minutes, but that seems to be mostly due to the demand playing this game and just the overwhelming amount of players downloading it, buying it, and playing it. I'm sure right now people are trying to milk this thing content-wise. I mean, my video is a perfect example of that, but I do think it does clash worlds with Pokemon, and I think it's worth bringing up. I think a lot of people are getting annoyed that it's being compared to Pokemon. Like, there's no comparison. There's comparison here, okay? Let's just get over that. There's comparison here, but they're very different, but they're very similar. I personally like it. That's just a small bullet point here. I personally like it. I think it looks pretty cool. I would like to actually play it. Watching the gameplay actually got me a little excited about playing it, and I rarely get excited for games. For the longest time, I've just been a gaming FPS boob, and I've mainly just stuck to playing the typical Call of Duty games over and over again, and it gets very tiring, and I miss a time when I played video games and actually enjoyed the playthrough of a game, and I think PalWorld could, scratch that itch. Pokemon should be able to protect its IP. This is something that I do feel strongly about. Pokemon has such a strong culture and fan base, and there are so many people that love the hobby and love the gameplay, and have thrived with it. this channel especially. And, you know, I do owe it to Pokemon to pay tribute to Pokemon for everything that my channel has done, and all of the talking points that I have and discussions I have and opinions that I have. All of it stems from this hobby and how much there is going on in this hobby. But, you know, at the end of the day, they need a more solid case, I think, than just the characters look similar. Now, there are more similarities that we're going to get through on these bullet points, but I just wanted to make that clear that I do think Pokemon should be able to protect its IP, regardless of how massive of a corporation, a franchise it is, and how much money it has coming in. You know, this is not, you know, I think a lot of people feel like this is the story of David and Goliath. I think a lot of people, and some people are probably going to make fun of me for that and be like, no, it's not. They ripped off Pokemon. And I understand that frustration, which is why I made that point of Pokemon should be able to protect its IP. But I think a lot of people here are getting that sensation, that feeling of, you know, the underdog. And PalWorld maybe being the underdog. And to be frank, people like an underdog. Okay. Adult versus kids game. I think this is a major point to be had, right? Because I think PalWorld is a game that you can get on with the boys and, you know, play with your friends and chop it up and, you know, have some drinks or have some smokes and talk about this game and play it online and have some banter. I think it's a fun game for adults to play, given the mechanics, the guns, the, you know, maybe graphic beatdown of the pals, and even the fact that you can eat these pals. You know, it's definitely a more graphic version of Pokemon, and I don't think this is a game that we necessarily want kids to be playing. But I do think there are a lot of cool things like the bases and, you know, playing, you know, as a team and, you know, all the mechanics of the pals and kind of building up. You know, I saw some footage of, you know, fortresses or houses being built, and, you know, farming and stuff of that nature. I thought it was very cool, and I'm hearing a lot of references to Ark. I don't necessarily know what Ark is, but I have a good feeling that it is an open world game, kind of, you know, building up, you know, this life or you know, I don't know, farming and building up a housing or a base of some sort, and foraging. You know, I don't know how to necessarily explain it, but I like all of these mechanics with the game, and I think they do make the game really unique. And you throw that in with the playful, you know, playability of, you know, being a Pokemon-esque game, and I think that makes it really good. These are things that I think really reinforce the game, and don't take away from it. But the biggest issue is the IP and the designs. And for people that worked very hard in Pokemon to design some of those Pokemon, Superior comes to mind. I want to think it's like Wooloo or something. It's the sheep Pokemon. And then Empoleon being compared to the penguin Pokemon. Some of these don't look similar, and there's only so much that you can do when compared to Pokemon and all their designs. They've really stolen, they've really run a monopoly on a lot of these designs that are taken from real world animals. You know, these designs from the inception of Pokemon come from somewhere, right? They're not fully Pokemons, really. They're, it's a tribute to nature itself, and the natural world itself. And so what else are you to do when a lot of those designs have already been copyrighted and, built into IP, and you want to do something different, but Pokemon pretty much has, already a monopoly on most of those cool designs. Now, that's no excuse for PalWorld, and I still think that people should be a little bit more critical on PalWorld, especially people that are just 100% fanboys of this game. You have to understand, from the fan base of Pokemon, which is a very big fan base, especially in the last couple of years, people are not happy that something like this could come out. And, I originally, I wasn't going to bring this up because I do think that they're two different worlds, but I think what scares people, especially, not just in the video game content creation world, but also in the card world, is what if something like PalWorld created its own TCG? I mean, that would be terrifying, really, for a lot of people that are, serious collectors and investors in Pokemon, which investing in Pokemon is really something that's only happened more recently and taken more seriously, and now it's really one of the main content pieces that people use when they're doing stuff about Pokemon. It's invest in this and buy this product and collect this way. That's mainly what people are making content about. So if PalWorld somehow got into a TCG market, that would upset a lot of people, I imagine, in the TCG world. Would I necessarily care? Probably not, because they are still so different, and they're just totally different markets. Fraudulent. Bad press equals good press. So I do think some of what PalWorld is doing is fraudulent. I'm not going to sugarcoat it in any way. It's just, I think there are some things that they are doing right, and I think there are some things that they are doing very wrong, and they shouldn't have done to begin with. A lot of that stems back to the gameplay, maybe, and the design, and maybe even some of the open world environment. I haven't played the game, so I can't speak on the actual open world environment, stuff like trees or water or, how the Pokemon move around, all that stuff. Pokemon has done that first, with these open world 3D versions of their games. So I'm a little bit, worried that PalWorld is going to get shut down because there's going to be this stacking argument of this is similar, this is similar, this is similar, this is similar. Doesn't mean we can't like the game, but the game might not last because of all of these issues and people seeing it as fraudulent. Crafting, bases, guns. Yeah, so like I just said, I think it's pretty cool that there are some different mechanics to this game, like the crafting and the bases and the guns. These are things that make some of the best computer games I grew up with playing. Before I was really, playing Xbox and PlayStation and playing online and FPSs. I was playing games. The main games that I liked were like games where you builded resources. I love, there is this game, Halo Wars, and you build armies and resources, and I'm forgetting one of the biggest games that was like that, but I like games where you build resources and you craft, and I like that PalWorld has included these things. And I rarely cover games, but because it was so close to being compared with Pokemon, and it's been all the rage right now, everyone seems to be talking about it, I figured this was maybe a relevant topic to cover, and I wanted to know your guys' thoughts. Everybody that collects and has respect for the Pokemon card TCG game as well as the video games, what you thought about this. I understand there's going to be a lot of people that are upset about it, that are going to be angry, but I just don't direct that at me, because these are opinions that I have, but at the end of the day, like, I respect everybody's opinions, whether it's PalWorld is trash to I think this game is pretty good and deserves a little bit more credit. I can relate and understand a little bit of both sides, although I do feel like there's a little bit of bias in both sides as well. People that don't care about Pokemon are going to be very pro the game, and people that do care about Pokemon are going to be very anti-game. And I'd like, to hear more unbiased opinion maybe of people who are in between that are like, I like Pokemon, but I like PalWorld too. I think there's a lot of us out there that are like that see a future for both of these. If they can rein in their design changes, maybe PalWorld 2.0, they do an update or some kind of patch and have to pull back on some of their designs and some of the gameplay mechanics. I'm not even sure that's possible at this point. But anyways, it would be better than a complete crash or the game being taken down entirely, I think. I think the fact that a lot of people are playing the game means a lot of people are enjoying the game, and it's bringing joy to the gaming community, which is really, really important, because these days we haven't had a game like that in a very, very long time. I think Fortnite, maybe, Minecraft and Fortnite were probably the biggest games to be like this, to kind of, break the press. Okay, here we go. PAL spheres, very close to Pokeballs. Okay, the way that you catch the PALs, this is a major, fraudulent, IP asset flipping point here, right? Because the fact that the Pokeballs are essentially the same thing as these PAL spheres is not good. Could they have thought of something else? Could they have been a little bit more original and artistic? Absolutely, there's other ways they could have thought about this. Instead of throwing something out, they easily could have thought about having a thing that they set down on the ground, some type of modular box that basically they set it on the ground. I mean, either way, I guess it all kinds of sounds like a Pokeball, but they set down what looks to be some kind of toolbox. They set it down on the ground, and it kind of absorbs the energy of weakened PALs around it and sucks them in. I mean, it's kind of, when you think about creating an alternate way to capture and imprison the PALs, I think it's kind of hard to think of something that doesn't rip off a Pokeball, right? We get all of our ideas from somewhere. So for people to think that there's not going to be any similarities, I think is a bit naive when considering that most of our ideas, most of the things that we come to think about and create, they're not really original. They come from somewhere, whether it be from something that we just take a glance at and forget about, or something that is, in our subconscious, but I think the PAL spheres being very close to Pokeballs is not a good look. Even if they had it where the guns had an attachment of some sort, or they have it, is a backpack. They have it as a backpack, and the backpack has a little gun that comes out of it that basically, shoots a tranquilizer at the PALs, and then it sucks them in. I don't know. I'm not the one creating the games. I'm just saying there are other ways they could have gone about this, guys. Let's not protect them on that front. This is a big one, guys, because I definitely side with this point. I believe this point, but Pokemon games are very redundant. And it's been that way since the inception of the first Pokemon games. They've been very similar pretty much all the way up until probably 2008, 2009. It took them about a decade to finally change the mechanics of their games and move in a more 3D-like gameplay fashion. So I think Pokemon has a really bad reputation of being redundant and doing the same things over and over again. I love Pokemon. I have a collection of all of the Game Boy games. I bought the Switch when it came out and got Scarlet and Violet. I was super excited because I like Miraidon and Corridon, and I knew that those were going to be the characters I was going to be playing with as I played through the game, and that got me really excited. And for the most part, I really actually like Scarlet and Violet. I'm one of those people that might go against the grain and say that I think it was actually a pretty good game. I haven't finished playing through it. I'm about like 70% through it, but I was playing through it. Now, I will say I had to kind of push myself a little bit to play through Scarlet and Violet. It's a little bit too PG for my taste, if that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't, but I like that about PalWorld. But yeah, that's just one of the points, that Pokemon games do seem like they are very redundant, and this would be a good wake-up call for Pokemon. I think many are going to say that Pokemon's not going to do anything differently. They're not going to change their ways just because of PalWorld, just because of some, low-quality clone version of what they're trying to do. They're not going to change anything. But I beg to differ. I think that they would change how they're making their games and put a little bit more effort and time into changing the mechanics, maybe, to appeal to a wider audience. Okay. The biggest franchise still can't make a great game. This is a point that a couple streamers have made, and I definitely somewhat agree with. For being Pokemon and for being one of the largest franchise and most successful franchises in the world, how on earth are you making games that are coming out for $60 out the gate, and they've got glitches and they've got bugs and they've got problems? Now, I didn't really experience a lot of these problems. You might hear my daughter in the background, as is usual on this channel. I didn't experience a lot of these problems myself, as I stated in the beginning of the video, but it does make you wonder, why on earth were these games so flawed from a company that has had this much success in the gaming world and as a franchise globally? That's something that people really should think about. Game Freak maybe not so great. So not sure what necessarily to do with that point. Again, it goes back with maybe they should work on their games a little bit more, that maybe this is a wake-up call. Again, feel free to disagree with that point and share why. I want to get a discussion going. I want to see what other people think about this game, or if even some of my own subscribers and following, if you guys have played this game, if you can let me know what you think of it and let me know what the playthrough has been so far, and if you personally think it's, you know, better or worse than Pokemon Scarlet Violet per se, because that's pretty much the most recent example we have of a comparison. Ooh. And then last but not least, designs are close but not all copies directly of Pokemon. I don't think that's a strong enough point to make for the argument of PalWorld, right? I think they should still be scrutinized for how similar some of these designs are. You know, when comparing to, you know, their Pokemon counterparts, if you don't know what Pokemon is, you're not going to even know that comparison, right? But if you've collected Pokemon or have been as immersed as I have, you see those comparisons and you just go, this is a total ripoff of Pokemon. So I completely understand that viewpoint, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel that way about this game. But again, is that enough of an argument to say that this isn't a good game and it's not worth getting, or it's not better than Pokemon? This is kind of the discussion that we're having here is, will this game, is it going to pretty much disrupt Pokemon? Is that possible? This is a super hot take, but, you know, I want to say, and Fortnite didn't do very well with this, but I think Fortnite had a card game at some point, and so that's why I make I connect the dots of, you know, could PalWorld eventually, if they're doing this with their video game, and this would seal their fate as far as, I think, IP and being truly fraudulent. If they did start something in TCG, I don't think it would be a good look for PalWorld. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they are just happy with their bread and butter, which is this video game. I think that they're raking in the cash on this game. There's really no reason for them to want to get into the card world. It's just a weird little theory of mine, and a genuine fear that maybe Pokemon Co. should have. But it'll be interesting to hear everybody's thoughts and their theories. You know, do my opinions and theories sound crazy? You know, does this game deserve, you know, a little bit more credit? Or is this game really truly as fraudulent as people are saying it is, and a travesty, you know, to all of the Pokemon fans out there? I don't know if I would go that far, but let me know what you guys think, and peace out. Thanks for watching.